Let's bring in Jonathan Broder. He's a contributing editor at Congressional Quarterly and SpyTalk. It's a pleasure to have you, Jonathan, on our program.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, the 9/11 attacks, of course, triggered the U.S. war in Afghanistan. So how does 9/11 continue to shape the U.S. approach to terrorism, not only in Afghanistan, but in other parts of the world?
Well, as you know, we withdrew from Afghanistan last year after 20 years of fighting the global war on terrorism there. And we don't really have that much to show for it. We basically left in defeat. We lost. We gave up and came back sort of in a very chaotic withdrawal. And that did not leave a very good impression on our allies in the Middle East. The war on terror still continues. If you remember, just perhaps last month or so, we killed the number 2 person in Al-Qaeda after Osama bin Laden, Zawahiri, Dr. Zawahiri, an Egyptian. So the message there is that if you are planning on harming the United States and you do harm the United States, the U.S. military will hunt you down no matter how long it takes. But right now, the focus on terrorism is not the same focus that it was, at least in the public's mind, as it was right after the 9/11 attacks. I mean, those attacks were stunning. I mean, they were the equivalent of like the attack on Pearl Harbor. Everybody remembers where they were, if they were alive at that time, where they were, what was happening around them when those attacks occurred.
Well, 9/11 happened, again, 21 years ago. Of course, it means different things to different people, different experiences. But as a whole, as a collective, what does it mean for the United States and Americans today?
I think what it meant was it was sort of the end of a feeling of invulnerability. I mean, the United States, for the biggest wars that it was in, World War I, World War II, even Vietnam, we were fighting on someone else's land. The war really didn't touch the homeland. And then suddenly, these planes go flying into the symbol of American capitalism and the symbol of American military might, killing, as you said, 3,000 people. Suddenly, we realize that those who want to hurt us had managed to pierce our defenses and hit us at home. So it was a real wake-up call, I think, for the United States and for Americans. And what happened in reaction to that was that the United States became basically a security state. I mean, all you had to do is go to the airport to see what the different conditions were as you try to get on a plane. Before, you just got on a plane. There was no security check. The only thing that they were checking for, perhaps, was something that you were bringing on the plane that you shouldn't have. Perhaps, more baggage than you were supposed to. Now they're checking for explosives. They're checking for liquids that could be explosives. And this has now become a routine part of our lives.
Yeah, it's definitely a new reality. You talked about the withdrawal of U.S. troops earlier from Afghanistan. How has that move affected the American view of 9/11?
Well, the war in Afghanistan has left a very, very bad taste in the mouths of many, many Americans. As I was saying before, we lost that war. Not only that, but I think by the year 2035, it's been calculated that the cost of that war, all the guns and ammunition and salaries, and also the health care that the U.S. government will have to keep on paying for those who were wounded in that war, will reach $8 trillion. I want to repeat that number, $8 trillion. And what do we have to show for it? Not very much. So I think that the less that is said about that war, I think a lot of Americans feel, the better, because it's not something that they want to remember very much. I think one thing that we have to remember, though, is that the United States began disengaging from the Middle East before the end of the war in Afghanistan. Let me remind your viewers that in I think it was September or August of 2019, either the Iranians or the Houthis in Yemen, or a combination of both of them, attacked the Saudi oil installations at Abqaiq, which is in eastern Saudi Arabia. It's where Aramco has its main oil installation. And those attacks, which were precise pinpoint attacks, knocked out half of Saudi's oil production, which amounted to 5% of the total world's oil production for 2 months. And the United States and Saudi Arabia always had a deal ever since Franklin Roosevelt met with King Abdulaziz.
Jonathan, I'm so sorry. We're running a little bit out of time. I wish I could talk to you a little bit more. There's so much to unpack here, but we do appreciate your insight, Jonathan. You have so much knowledge for it. Contributing editor at Congressional Quarterly and SpyTalk. Hope to have you again soon.
Thank you.
Well, to